Hey guys, it's Godbars here, the self-proclaimed hip-hop historian, and this is the 63rd episode of my series where I grab a vinyl from my collection, talk about why I love it, what influence it had, and what its place is in the grand scheme of hip-hop. So while this is still a New York album that definitely has its roots in 90s boom bap, the movement it was part of kind of preceded the more recent underground emergence, at least in terms of popularity. I was obsessed with this album when it came out and I was 14 or so, and it was one of the multiple Beast Coast albums that me and my friends had in constant rotation. I heavily enjoyed pretty much everyone from that scene from Pro Era to Underachievers, but Flatbush Zombies were always my personal favorite, and I would always maintain that Michi Darko was the best lyricist in the entire Beast Coast whenever I would debate it with my friends. I've always felt like he has really interesting imagery and ways of phrasing lines, which can be hard to notice at times since his voice is so enigmatic and attention grabbing on its own. He's one of those guys who really has a voice just built for rapping, especially the dark, borderline horrorcore aesthetic he uses it for. On the other side of the spectrum, we have Zombie Juice, whose voice is arguably just as distinct as Michi's, but in the opposite direction, with it being the highest register in the Beast Coast. This, of course, makes the two of them a match made in heaven, with the resident in-house producer, Eric the Architect, bridging the gap with his more orthodox style. He still has a great voice for hip-hop, and is an incredibly proficient lyricist and writer. He just understandably has what you'd traditionally consider a more normal voice, at least next to Michi and Juice. I've also long said that Eric the Architect is one of the most gifted beatmakers and producers in the genre today, and I feel like his name deserves a spot in more of those conversations. He has a dense production discography, but personally my favorite group of beats he's contributed has to be the ones he made for Better Off Dead here, the Zombie's second official mixtape. While this isn't technically classified as an LP, it easily could be as the tape spans over an hour with 18 rugged boom bap inspired tracks. Their sound wasn't dated or presenting itself as stuck in the past, while still being clearly influenced by hardcore 90s boom bap like Onyx, ODB, Big Pun, DMX, Artifacts, and MOP. At least those are a few of the inspirations I hear in their music, and I think when it's all said and done, Flatbush Zombies will have a spot amongst legendary and memorable trios like The Lox, De La Soul, Ghetto Boys, Cypress Hill, Black Moon, Little Brother, maybe even Beastie Boys and Run DMC one day. They were able to separate themselves from not just other underground rappers active in New York at the time, like Ka or Rock Marciano, but even the other acts in Beast Coast. This was due to their tendency to rap about a myriad of drugs, especially psychedelics. They still had their fair share of weed talk, notably Palm Trees, which is probably still the most well-known song to come from the trio, but their affinity for LSD and psilocybin helped introduce them to a crowd that not a lot of rappers got much play with. Make no mistake though, it isn't like the content is non-stop telling you how amazing drugs are. It's more in the vein of what Danny Brown was doing at the time, where they're upfront about their addictions, but they're also pretty honest in terms of the downsides and negatives. It's the kind of music you have to take with a grain of salt, because just like the horror movie inspired violent lyrics, the excessive references to substance use are part of the zombie persona and aesthetic. The most direct example of this on Better Off Dead would have to be Drug Parade, which fittingly actually does feature Danny Brown, but he isn't the only guest appearance on the tape, as we also get contributions by Action Bronson and Bridget Perez. Also, while the vast majority of these sinister and cinematic instrumentals were done by the architect, there were a couple other contemporary beatmakers in the mix, like Harry Fraud and Obey City, both of whom produced one track each. Another quality Flatbush has that kind of goes hand in hand with the shroom and acid talk is the interest in third eyes and chakras that they shared with Underachievers and Capital Steez of Pro Era, who had passed the year before this tape's release. This led them to tackle a lot of issues stemming from distrust in their government, social double standards, and racial gaslighting. At times it can border into conspiracy territory, for lack of a better term, but to me it works with the larger themes in the project and reminds me of the type of risks underground groups like Company Flow or Nonfiction would take a decade before these guys. There's also many slick references and shoutouts to old school rappers, songs, or classics that any hip hop head would at least acknowledge these guys as true students of the game. For this blueprint of dark, modern underground rap, I have to give some honorable mentions before my top three, like American Pie, Bliss, Death One, Live from Hell, Palm Trees, 222, Miraz, and The Results Are In. For my three overall favorites, they would have to be Nephilim, Regular and Complex, or G&B, Guns and Butter, and My Team Supreme. Thank you for watching my 63rd video. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, subscribe, and let me know what your favorite songs off this breakthrough mixtape are. Don't forget to have a great day, and I'll see you next time, okay? Alright.